When learning to cook, you need to understand the basic methods and principles of cookery. Those principles can then be applied to any dish from any country in the world. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the techniques, ingredients and equipment used by professional chefs globally. Understanding the methods of cookery, it's like understanding a universal culinary language. Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about stewing. Now, stewing is something that was seen once upon a time as a peasant dish, but realistically, it's coming back into restaurants with a bang. All those wonderful flavours of the vegetables, the meat, and the liquids are kept within the one dish. Stewing is the method of cookery where tough meats and vegetables are cooked completely immersed in liquid for approximately 2 to 4 hours until they tenderise. Today, what I want to do is show you a really basic stew. And as always, with this method, you apply it to anything and you can create a perfect dish. Curries, Irish stew, Moroccan dishes, it doesn't matter. The same principle applies. Now, the best cuts, the tough cuts, come from the neck and the shoulder of animals, and from chickens, from the hind leg. Now, that leg does all the work, and those working muscles have got full of flavour, they've got more connective tissue, and that will break down over the stewing process. It's really important before we start stewing to have a hot pot, and then we coat our meat in flour. The flour will thicken the sauce, and it will also give a beautiful brown caramel colour to the meat. It's important also with the flour that you season it with salt and pepper. The salt and pepper has to get onto it at this stage. We don't want to add it later during the stew, otherwise you might over salt the sauce as well. Shake off the flour really well, otherwise it will become stodgy in the pot. It's really important that we get it nice and dry. The pot's hot, we get a little bit of oil. You could use butter if you prefer, but as long as you do have some sort of frying medium, and then we add the floured meat to that hot oil. You want to hear it sizzle. If you don't hear it sizzle, your pan wasn't hot enough. You need that heat to cause a nice, beautiful caramel brown colour. Now, one of the most important things when cooking is your temperature control. If it's too high, it will burn, and if it's too low, all the juice will pour out of the meat, and we need to trap it in the meat at this stage. So always look at your temperature, really, really important. It's getting a nice brown colour now, and we don't want to burn it. If you get any burnt flour, what will happen is it will become very bitter, and a bitter stew is not nice. We need to make it as sweet as possible. You can see there that beautiful brown colour, and that's going to actually colour the whole sauce of your stew. If you don't achieve this colour, you'll have a very pale stew. And now that it's browned, what we need to do is take out the meat and then start with the vegetables. So now we remove the meat and just place that onto a plate, and we'll reintroduce that into the stew later. This is the same with chicken, with beef and lamb and goat. Now we need to keep our pot nice and hot. We don't want to lose the heat from the pot. And we've got some fantastic vegetables we're going to add, and this is the key flavour to any good stew or braise, and in fact even soups. And this is called mirepoix. Now mirepoix is roughly cut vegetables, carrots, celery and onions. They add a nice sharp flavour, a peppery flavour and a sweet flavour to any stew. We need to get them nice and brown as well. I'm also going to add a couple of bay leaves and some fresh thyme because it's a lovely aromatic herb. So while those are browning, we'll talk about some flavouring ingredients. You can add all sorts of flavours to a stew. You can add spices, other herbs or pastes. Now today I'm going to add a paste, and today I'm going to use tomato paste. Tomato paste is nice and rich and sweet, and it will add even more colour to this stew. This caramelisation process cannot be rushed. You have to be patient, let all those wonderful colours and flavours develop. And now that they have, I'm going to deglaze it with a little bit of red wine. Now, to deglaze means to lift the sediment back up into the sauce. All those fantastic flavours come up, and it also leaves a clean bottom on the pot. And that means throughout the cooking process, it won't stick to the bottom. Now that we've deglazed the pot and all the wine has had time to reduce, we can reintroduce the meat. So the meat goes back in at this stage, we mix the two together, and then we just have to cover it with a little bit of beef stock and then let it simmer for approximately 2 to 4 hours until the meat is tender. Remember, simmering is at 98 degrees. It's not a rapid boil. There's gentle bubbles all the time, and that allows the flavour transfusion to go in and out of the meat, and it flavours both the meat and the liquid at the same time. It's important to use a stock from the same animal. If you're making a chicken stew, use chicken stock, and a beef stock. It's only a delicate stock, and it's really important the meat is completely covered. Now, don't think that because you've covered it once you can walk away. You have to tend to your stew. It's a long cooking process, which means if it evaporates, you need to keep topping it up so the meat is always covered with liquid. It's been 2.5 hours and the stew has become nice and tender. The best way to tell that is to take a small knife and place it into the meat, and it should insert and come out with no effort whatsoever. Also, we must check the flavour, because the flavour can change while it's cooking. It may not be salty enough. This is my favourite part. It does need a little bit of salt and also a small amount of pepper as well. And now all we have to do is serve it. I always love to serve a stew in a bowl. It means that you can dip crusty bread into there and put all of the vegetables and salads on the side. Make the stew a feature on the table. A little bit of garnish on the side just to brighten it up, and maybe some chopped herbs or even some whole herbs would be perfect as well. That's it. Absolutely beautiful. A really nice thick sauce. All of the flavours are in there. Remember, it's not what you cook, it's how you cook it.